You are now joining Children of the Watch.
That's right. It's the #1 podcast in the galaxy for all things Star Wars television. I'm your host, Din Djarin, and joining me, as always, is
Mac Lacey, feeling very underdressed at the moment. Extremely underdressed. I didn't get the memo. Left my helmet in my speeder.
So
for anyone
Mac,
listening.
Yeah,
Alex, describe your appearance currently.
Please do.
No, you
Oh,
tell us what you look like.
So it's kind of hard to hear in this thing. I am wearing Din Djarin's Mandalorian helmet, which you can see on the YouTube if you're listening. So click on the watch button on your show notes, and you can see me wearing the Mandalorian helmet. It's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. In just a moment, I'm going to show the inside of it. I just wanted to see how long I could go wearing this and podcasting at the same time.
Yeah, I wonder how the audio quality is going to be affected. It'll be interesting. It's a grand.
It's going to be terrible.
I love that I can see lights reflected in it. It's very shiny.
I think if I do this, it might. I don't know if that helps at all. Okay. I'm kind of angling.
You can see your laptop screen in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome everybody. This is the Bad Batch recap. We're going to be talking about some Bad Batch episodes. This is going to be 12 and 13. And it's going to be fun.
It's going to be so much fun. So what we're doing is, like he said, we're talking about Rescue on Ryloth. We're also talking about Infested, the new episode that came out today. Infested, which many are calling a filler episode. So we're going to talk about those two things. We're going to talk about Howzer, of course, who is probably my favorite clone of all time now.
He's so handsome.
He is so handsome.
He's just very striking. Very striking.
And he's a good man.
Yeah, what's the deal? What's up with that? We'll talk about it.
I think a clone rebellion's coming, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that on the Bad Batch recap. Now, this is not live. Typically, we do these live. It just kind of worked better for both of our schedules if we pre-recorded this. So you're actually getting it early, though, because of that. So usually it comes out on Sunday evenings. But this time, it's coming out on Friday, which is exciting. You get it immediately after watching the episode. And so that's a lot of fun. But we want to go over what our future schedule will look like for the Bad Batch recap because we're approaching the end of the Bad Batch. Unfortunately, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun on this kind of different format than what we normally do, right? Like typically what we're known for, since we used to be the Mandalorian Watch and then we transitioned our name to better cover the upcoming live action Star Wars television shows, we're typically a scene-by-scene, very detailed breakdown. The Bad Batch recap is not that. If you've been listening, you know that. It's more of a just general discussion, kind of theorizing where it could go. And we just been kind of having fun. Now, the reason for that is when we do those scene-by-scene breakdowns on the live-action shows, those are tough. Like, those are not easy to accomplish for both Mac and myself. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. So this is kind of like our off season. So we didn't want to work as hard, to be honest with you.
The format we have is a marathon and not a sprint. So we're just trying to pace ourselves.
Exactly. So if you want us at our best, this was the best way to do it. When December rolls around and we're covering the book of Boba Fett and we're getting into extreme scene by scene details, we just kind of had to do the Bad Batch this way of, hey, let's just generally talk about it, but still cover it. So that's been kind of our philosophy. Now, as we've gone into the summer, we've gotten kind of busier and busier, which is why you see these recap episodes where we are grouping a lot of episodes together. So we wanted to give you an update on what the schedule will be like until the end of the Bad Batch. So you've got this episode, and if you're a Patreon member, you can expect a new commentary episode very, very soon where Boba Fett himself arrives and saves the day with Fennec Shand. super excited to
that's going to be a really cool discussion.
Yeah.
I feel like because that's we're going to be getting into Book of Boba Fett territory, even more than we already have. We're going to be talking about the stuff that just is going to be directly, preceding it. So
exactly. So I'm super excited about that. Then on August 6th, we will return for the Bad Batch recap, and we'll cover episodes 14 and 15, which are the last two episodes before the finale. And then we'll be back again for the finale for the Bad Batch recap, where we cover the finale and hopefully have a guest on as well, just to talk about just the season in general, where we think it's going, and how we enjoyed it. So that's kind of our schedule going forward. Okay. And then as we get closer to the Book of Boba Fett, especially after a trailer drops, make sure you tune in to this channel, this podcast, because then we are going full sprint ahead. We will be covering and going into, that's not a good way to say that. Going into.
Yeah. Revisiting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We will be revisiting our Book of Boba Fett rewatch, where we're picking back up where Boba Fett and his life leading up to the Book of Boba Fett as we prepare for that show. So we've already done Attack of the Clones, and then once that trailer drops, and you can be sure we will be doing a detailed scene-by-scene breakdown on that trailer when that drops.
Absolutely.
Then we will start going back to looking at where he was in the Clone Wars, the original trilogy, and all that.
Yeah. And then we'll probably start, covering more news and stuff like that at that point. We'll be covering the developments more often. But yeah, that trailer will kind of be the starting gun for Book of Boba Fett season. So
speaking of Book of Boba Fett, I heard this guy might be in it.
I think that's a surefire.
Now, if you're watching, I'm going to show you what the inside of the helmet looks like, just so you get an idea of what Din sees when he puts that helmet on. So this is the Hasbro. I'm doing a little plug. This is the Hasbro Mandalorian helmet. #ad.
It's not. They're not paying us. This is completely just of Alex's own accord.
Yeah, but if you want to, please reach out to us.
Hasbro. Let us know.
So it's pretty cool. I definitely think you should get one if you're a Mandalorian fan. Like, I'm not a cosplayer. That's not my thing, but I wanted this, and it was really cool, and I'm glad I got it. All right. That's all the business.
I think with that, that's the business. Let's go ahead and get into the recap.
Let's do it. So let's start on episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth. The director is Nathaniel Villanueva, and the writer is Jennifer Corbett. And I love this episode. I think, the first episode of this 2-arc series did a great job setting this episode up. And basically, Hera reaches out to the Bad Batch because her parents have been captured by the Empire. We saw what happened at the end, where Crosshair basically took out Senator Ta, and we're not really sure if he's alive or dead. It could go either way. And they basically made it look like Cham killed Senator Ta. And so now he's the bad guy. He's captured. So Hera reaches out to the Bad Batch specifically through Omega. And Omega's the one that has to basically get the team together to go rescue them. And they're a little hesitant at first. One of the things that I really enjoyed in this episode was the point where Omega says to Hera that those were her brothers. Like, the Bad Batch are her brothers. And like, you can kind of see on Hera's face of like, she wants that. She wants a family like that.
Right.
And she ends up getting that later in Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah. It's like, that's the seeds of the idea for the Ghost Crew sown right there.
It's cool.
Yeah. I thought the episode was really cool. I loved getting to see Hera, even from the get-go, as someone of action. Like, she's not going to sit around and mope or wait. She's going to do something about, people that she loves being in trouble.
Yeah.
And I love getting to see that aspect of it. I loved seeing in this episode too, the Bad Batch and how Omega is now operating.
Yeah.
within the team, because I feel like a few episodes ago there's a big moment where she really kind of earned her place as a full-fledged member of the squad in that chess game.
Yeah.
And so I love that that's been actual concrete development we've been able to see carry on,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it is awesome to see Omega's character growth, which is something that we need to talk about because it's been a little bit since you've been on the Bad Batch Recap, Mac.
Yeah, been a couple episodes.
So we're going to talk about that in a second. But what I really loved about this episode, obviously, they end up basically they kind of split up into two teams, right? And one team is the distraction team they're basically attacking the refinery on Ryloth, and the other team is going to get Cham and his wife, Hera's mom, out of captivity, and all the others out of captivity. And they end up being very successful at that. But they weren't they wouldn't be able to do it without our boy Howzer, right?
That's true.
So Howzer is the clone. Basically, he's the ARC trooper assigned to Ryloth, I'm guessing, who was there, I guess, towards the end of the Clone Wars. And
it seems kind of a later days installation there, that squad.
And he, all last episode you always got the sense that he wasn't totally okay with what Vice Admiral Rampart was doing, but there's not much he can do or say because this is that's a superior, and clones are bred to follow orders. And it was just kind of interesting to see, especially at the end where he makes his stand. He doesn't and what I love about it right now is that he didn't make a violent stand. He just said, hey, this is wrong. And anybody else who thinks this is wrong, come on, this, we can't let this happen. And I love that scene of he's basically calling his brothers out of hey, we've got to stand up and this is wrong. And I love that some clones went with him and decided to be arrested and some didn't.
Right. That whole sequence was very impactful. I think it was one of the most standout sequences in this show so far for me. I loved seeing it. I was wondering the whole time kind of where the influence of the inhibitor chip starts and stops, if that makes sense, just because I wouldn't have thought that would have been even that would have been possible,
right?
Because he's going against direct orders. So I don't know.
That is a good question.
On that,
that is a good question in terms of how long that inhibitor chip actually works,
and to what extent, what all does it encompass?
Right, because it would be my understanding that it makes you do Order 66, and any Jedi or anybody that goes against Order 66, you got to eliminate them. But over time, does that wear off?
Right. Is it, to me, I've always thought of them more as something that enabled Order 66 to happen. Not so it just flips a switch and puts clones into total robot obedience mode, right? And so that's the only way that Order 66 was able to happen. I don't know that the chips itself would have corresponded to that specific order.
That's a good point. Yeah, I like that. It kind of makes me wonder, and this is something I speculated on our last Bad Batch recap episode. It kind of makes me wonder if this clone rebellion is coming, which we think that it is, that we kind of feel like it is. This might be
kind of the inciting incident for it. Yeah,
I agree. It all evidence kind of points that way. It might not happen this season, but all evidence is kind of pointing towards that. It kind of makes me wonder, maybe the inhibitor chip doesn't work as well in all clones, making some of those clones that refuse to do things part of the Bad Batch. They're all the Bad Batch clones now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You mean the real Bad Batch was the friends we made along the way?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Exactly.
I like that. I could definitely see that being the case. And maybe that has kind of to do with the why the clone program ends has a distinct end. I mean, that's kind of the nail in the coffin for clones being used in the Imperial Army at all.
Right. I don't know. It was just cool to see. Like, I know a lot of people were speculating that maybe Howzer had his inhibitor chip removed. I don't think so. I think that he's had it. He probably followed Order 66, and so did those other clones, but maybe it's starting to wear off a little bit. And I think there's even evidence of that at the end of the episode. I don't know about you, Mac, but I saw Crosshair have some hesitation.
Absolutely. It was a complex series of facial expressions he made within that short time span. Yeah, I wonder, which is going to be interesting to if in things have gone the way they've gone, and then the inhibitor chip's influence dies out at some point, it's gonna make what happens to the clone army afterwards even more interesting, because they've got to make a lot of tougher choices at that point. They have to decide, like, do I continue on this path even though I didn't maybe choose it, or am I going to take my opportunity now to use the agency that I've regained? Like, that's a big conversation to have,
I just had an idea, and I like this idea that I'm having. So, okay, it makes me wonder then, like, can the inhibitor chip be used again? Like, is there another order that they can use to, like, okay, these clones are acting up, let's do Order 67 or something, like, it's probably not Order 67, but you know what I'm saying, of like, let's try again to regain control of the clones. But then you've got Rex out there, and we know that from Rebels, which happens later in the timeline, that Gregor and Wolf, they had those scars on their head. So I'm wondering, maybe Rex is going around removing the chips from people, and that's like, just to make sure, hey, you cannot turn us.
Right. I did look on the side of Howzer's head, and I think they almost like made it, his haircut is almost intentionally revealing the fact that he does not have scars there. Like, because I think we are, like, thematically moving into kind of that realm.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the chips. That's what it was primarily I was wondering about during this episode.
And a lot of people, and I don't want to say a lot of people, some people were kind of complaining about these two episodes 11 and 12, that the Ryloth arc is what I'm going to call it, because it didn't really have a lot to do with the Bad Batch. But, like, when I think about the grand scheme of what this show is trying to do, and really, like, what the tone was set in episode 1 of the show, it really was, hey, this is the transition from Republic to Empire, from clone troopers to stormtroopers. And we get to see that on a big galactic scale, not just the Bad Batch, but all the clones, which is not something that I expected from this show. And maybe that's what's kind of hard for some people, is because, like, what their expectations of the show going into it don't really match what the show is. And that can even happen, though, even over a course of a show that's this long, it's 16 episodes. What the show was at the beginning can change to the end, too. That's something that's possible, too. But to go back to Omega real quick, you just kind of mentioned and highlighted how she's growing as a character. What were your thoughts? Because we didn't get to hear your thoughts of, okay, she's Omega, but we learned that Boba Fett is actually Alpha.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're going there. So Boba is going to be kind of involved in this in a bigger way than maybe we thought.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's just more and more pointing me to, there's something about Omega that the Kaminoans have as a contingency plan.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like Omega is carrying the next genetic material to be the basis for the next, like, line of clones, or if there's something about Omega that can influence other clones. Who knows how it's gonna actually play out. But just the Alpha and Omega thing, I feel like is just pointing towards that contingency thing. there's been talk
yeah.
of the genetic material
So
decaying, and they're
much.
not going to be able to, so maybe it's something along those lines.
It kind of makes me wonder if the Kaminoans think Boba's dead or something. Like they're so. I think you're right. I mean, this kind of proves your point. They're so adamant about getting Omega when you've got Boba Fett right there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he's just running around with Aura Singh right now or something.
right. So like, if you need the genetic material, he's got it too. So why not go after him? So it kind of makes me think that I think you're right. There's something unique about Omega that Boba Fett doesn't have. Even though she too is like a pure genetic replica, right? So like that technically kind of makes her like little sister to Boba Fett in a way.
Yeah.
It makes, now this is something that we also kind of talked about on the last episode of the Bad Batch recap. And I want to get your thoughts while we're on this topic. Do you think Jango and Boba knew about Omega? Because if she is a pure genetic replica, that means she doesn't have any growth acceleration, right?
Yeah, I think she was concealed from them for sure. Because I mean, think about that. That's like having a child you don't know about. Like for Jango, right?
Yeah.
Because she was set aside in the same way Boba was. I don't know. I feel like she had to have been concealed. I think she is an entity that is it was created and can only be used by the Kaminoans. I think she's solely intended for their purposes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll remind me at the end of this episode. I've got a Omega theory that since we got 3 episodes, I want to just put out into the air. I don't think it's right, but I want to at least say it in case it is. So,
all right,
just don't let me forget. Okay. Any other thoughts on Rescue on Ryloth in terms of things that stood out to you, or maybe your favorite part, or questions that you have coming out of that episode?
I just love that we got to check back in with the Ryloth struggle. We've gotten it in Clone Wars, we've gotten it, in various places. We've seen some stuff in Rebels. It just helps everything feel more connected. And I love that. I love that we're getting new stories. We're in different time periods and stuff like that, but we're still checking in on the same conflicts that have kind of been in existence the whole time.
Yeah.
I like it.
To me, that those 2 episodes did more for me to care about Ryloth than anything before it. So it made me want to go back and reread Lords of the Sith, that takes place on Ryloth, and it's canon. And so all that.
Right there in frame. If you're watching, that's Lords of the Sith right there, I think.
Oh, I was like, wait a second. What are you doing? What are you pointing? Okay.
On the shelf, sorry.
Yeah. This is why you need to watch on the YouTube as well. If you're just listening, that'd be great. So yeah. I don't know. It's really cool. I enjoyed those 2 episodes. I thought they were fantastic. And of course, I love to see Hera and Chopper. Anything that has to do with Star Wars Rebels is great, in my opinion. And if you're not watching Star Wars Rebels, you need to. It's actually the vehicle in which I introduced one of my nieces to Star Wars. I felt like the movies were a little too intense for her. But we watched the first 2 episodes of Rebels together while we're on a plane.
That's a great experience. That's a great jumping off point.
So I asked her at the end of it, I was like, so what'd you think? She said, I didn't like it. I loved it. I was like,
yeah, that's great. And you're on a plane. Everything's better when you're watching it on a plane.
Yeah. I mean, because you have to watch it. It's you can't do anything else. So.
Right. Anything I'm watching on a plane is automatically 1 million times more interesting than anything I'm watching at any other point in my life.
Surprisingly, except Tenet. I tried rewatching that on a plane and I wasn't having it. So
didn't do it for you.
Didn't do it for me. Did not do it for me. All right, so let's move to episode 13, Infested. The director is Saul Ruiz. The writer is Amanda Rose Munez. And so this one is basically like, I think, and I've been checking the Bad Batch recap Discord. Like on our Discord, we have a Bad Batch chat. I've been checking that, and I think they all agree, if you're on the Patreon, you have access to this Discord. They all agree that this is probably the last mission episode, right? Like, this is probably it. Light spoilers. I think everyone knows the title of the next episode. But, so, like, the next 5 seconds, just close your ears. It's called War Mantle. So I think from here on out, it is about to get real.
It's about to get real. Yeah.
So like,
and I mean, the crosshair conflict has now amped up. It's that's kind of been planted there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming to a head.
It is coming to a head. So I think this, like, it didn't bother me that this wasn't like moving the overall story forward. But the thing that you got to realize, I think, with especially the animation side, but even stuff like The Mandalorian, that these episodes sometimes have a great deal of importance later in a series that we have no idea about right now in the moment.
Right.
So like, the character Roland, I think, could be a huge character going forward, and he was introduced in this episode. So I think that it was important.
Right. And I even think about things like Ahsoka was introduced in a piece of work that is not good, in my opinion. If you love it, great. But
the first Clone Wars movie is a little rough.
It's not the most riveting material in the Star Wars canon.
Ooh, but Sleepy the Hutt.
Yeah, Ahsoka is now one of the most important characters.
Yep.
Like currently, right?
Exactly. That's a great point.
So you never know what can happen when you go back and like characters that you love now. When you watch them appear for the first time in Clone Wars, you're like, oh, this was the episode that came up. It's like,
yeah.
And then they grow on you. So
exactly.
I definitely, and I just watched the episode. The name is blanking of the new crime boss guy, underling. His name sounded like Duran.
Oh, Roland Durand.
Durand. All right. Yeah. I think he's gonna be big later.
I do too.
He's gonna be important.
He feels important. There's something that about him. They developed him way too much in this episode for it just to be one episode.
Right. We've got his family backstory. Like, right. Yeah. He'll be around, and I'm excited to see they've given him like a very unique visual thing with the missing horn now. I think we're going to see a lot more of him just in general.
Right. So at the beginning of this episode, so basically we get the sense that there was some sort of other mission that the Bad Batch did that we didn't see again. I love that sort of thing. Again, it leaves so much space and room for other stories and other mediums like comics and books and stuff like that. So they're returning from another mission that we did not see specifically because they kind of make mention of it, and it's not Ryloth. So when they get there, they notice all these armored people kind of through Ord Mantell, and they're sick. I love those guys. Like Roland Durand's security team, sign me up because I want one of those helmets.
Just a set. They looked like very menacing beetles to me.
Yes. Did you ever see the show? You might have been a little too young for this. Beetleborgs. It's like Power Rangers, but
that sounds like some
Beatles.
Yeah, nope.
They had like a blue.
Is not ringing a bell.
So like instead of Zordon, they had like a blue ghost that looked like Jay Leno.
Great.
In a haunted mansion.
Okay. That's
awesome.
a choice for a superhero hideout.
I loved it. Anyways, it is very Beetle-like, these soldiers or security teams. But
they look like they have a carapace is the best way I can describe it. Carapace is the most fitting word there.
Yeah, like they're cicadas. So Okay, so like what's really interesting, like when they go into Sid's bar or whatever you want to call that, her diner or whatever establishment.
Yeah.
It's a front anyways. Let's just be for
Oh
real.
yeah. She's just running spice.
Yeah. So Roland's pretty good though at getting patrons to come because Sid's awful at it, right? Like nobody comes to Sid's, but everybody's coming to Roland's.
Right. Yeah, he has more of a flair for entertaining, I think. He's livened up the joint.
He's probably passing out spice. I mean, let's be for real.
Maybe that.
But yeah, we get the sense like right away that something's going on with Sid. And at first I took it as, oh, this is the client that Sid works for. But it didn't, like, as the episode went on, it didn't seem that way unless I got confused by something. Did you take it that way?
No, I think he's just somebody who saw an opportunity to move in on Sid. I don't think he was, I don't think they were in business. They're obviously familiar. She knows who his mom is and stuff. But, I think they were probably just neighboring operations, and he just kind of decided to push her out,
Yeah, like I was kind of looking forward to if it was like, oh, that's who she's been working for. That's who they've been working for, but that's not it.
I still want it to be Werner Herzog.
Ooh, the client. Because it's the client.
He's the perpetual client, right?
He's just always the client.
Yeah.
I like that.
I couldn't get Werner Herzog out of my mouth, though. That is a mouthful of a name.
Listen, I'm having trouble getting anything out of my mouth right now. You probably, if you're listening, watching, I have a bit of a head cold right now. It's not COVID, thankfully. It's just climate. Going to two extreme different climates very quickly can do that to you.
Yeah. So I stepped out of the shower and dried off, and by the time I had walked from through my bedroom to the hall, I was already wet again.
That's the South for you.
Yeah, I'm just saying you went from dry to a humidifier.
It is true. This is true. So, so basically Roland, which I love that name in Star Wars. I think that's a cool name to have in Star Wars.
It's good, yeah.
He has taken over.
Roland is just a good organized crime name,
for sure. Think. Yeah. Very Western too. It's I like that. He has taken over Sid's operation, and we see some pikes in the establishment as well, which kind of alerted me of like, uh-oh, something's going on. Anytime you see the pikes, which you saw in Solo, they're the ones that were running the Kessel mines, the spice mines on Kessel.
You also might remember them from the best Clone Wars episode, which is Corruption.
Think of the children.
Aren't the pikes in that one? Pretty sure
I think so. No, those are the no, they're like the pikes, but they're not. They're the like Egyptian pharaoh aliens that are pouring Slaben in tea. Right?
Yeah, maybe. I think I'm confusing it with when they come to Mandalore with Darth Maul.
Because they do join the Shadow Collective, which is like Darth Maul's like.
It's the best name for a cabal.
It really is.
It's the best one.
Darth Maul's just the best at everything he does except winning.
Branding, though, it's a strong brand. The
he
red
is
and
very
black,
good at branding.
Horns,
Personal
he's
branding.
on it. He's got it.
All of it. That is true. Yeah, he's expert at branding. That's what Palpatine should have done with him. Of like, you're just in charge of branding of the Sith stuff. I'll handle everything else.
Maul is just like some tech, venture capitalist. He just knows how to make a solid brand. Has no product, but has the brand.
That's me in a nutshell, by the way. Think of it though, in Solo at the end when he's talking to Kira on the hologram, there's no reason for him to force pull his lightsaber into the hologram and ignite it. There's no reason for it.
we've talked about this before. It would be like if we're communicating via video call right now. If I ended this video call by showing you a gun and just said, "All right, bye," and here's my gun. That's the equivalent of what that is. It makes
it's all about the branding. Ma was like, "Hey, just so you remember, I have a lightsaber and I'm in charge."
Yeah, I was not expecting that to be the recurring bit that came back up today, but here we are.
Here we are. So that was a fun rabbit trail. So basically, you've got this scenario where Roland is going to try to sell some spice to the Pike Syndicate, and he's using Sid's establishment to do that. Sid ends up finding the Bad Batch after they confront Roland, and they're like very confused as what's going on. And Sid basically says like, "Hey, there's a way to sneak into my place underground where we can steal the spice, make Roland look awful and terrible. They'll kill him." That's implied. That she doesn't say that, but that's totally implied. And then I can take my place back. And so like that's what the mission is. So they sneak into the underground tunnels, and guess what, Mac? It's infested.
It's infested, just like the name of the episode. I've already said that I think there's a lot of positive stuff for this episode, a lot of characters and stuff, conflicts that could carry on. I do think the middle of this episode dragged a lot for me.
Yeah, I started checking my phone a lot.
Anytime there's a bugs in the tunnel plot, not usually in Rebels. They did it with the Geonosians. Yep. We got it in the Mandalorian.
Yep.
It was one of my least favorite episodes of the show. So
bugs
anytime
tunnels,
there's a bugs in tunnel plot, it's not my thing.
It's an overused plot device that I think that let's find something else scary in a tunnel.
Even like a giant worm in a tunnel would be a refreshing change of pace.
Yeah. Did you see the Dune trailer, by the way? That movie is going to be legit.
Yo, I can't wait.
Legit. Maybe we'll talk about it on the Patreon. Maybe we won't. We'll see.
We'll see.
So they're basically going through the tunnel, Indiana Jones style. These bugs attack. Just like all Star Wars bugs, if you shine light on them, for some reason they don't like light, just like in Rebels. And Omega ends up getting captured with Roland by the Pikes. And we get to see Omega have, like, this is something that she's really good at. She's really good at empathy. She's good at empathizing with people. And it goes beyond just clones, which kind of makes me think, is there something there? Is the Force with her?
So this episode was the first time that I found myself asking that question. I always thought that if she had some kind of extrasensory thing going on, it was a result of being a experimental clone. But now I was thinking about it, and I was like, she really does feel connected. And even with Ruby, she's automatically connected with the pet. And so I'm like,
I love that pet, by the way.
It's like a pangolin, but weird. I love it. It's cool.
Yeah.
So like this was the first time I was wondering if she might be a little bit sensitive.
Yeah. Which goes into my theory that I'll share at the end of this. So, anyways, I just watched this and I'm having trouble remembering everything. So that kind of tells you, like, I don't think it was a bad episode, but it's not super memorable either. Right. The Bad Batch win. They get the Pikes out of there. They save Omega, and they end up forgiving Roland for what he's done. And he kind of has a second chance to kind of, okay, I'm not going to die. So like, that's kind of where I think, okay, he's coming in later, whether it's in the next 3 episodes or a later season or something else. I think he's a very important character, and I think he can add a lot, especially to the underworld of Star Wars that they're building.
Yes. I want to see him like interact with Drayden Voss one day. Mm-hmm. Like I want more of that. I'm very into that side of Star Wars. I feel like we have a lot of questions left from Solo. And he Roland would fit into any of the stories that kind of try to clarify those questions.
Now, for a second, when they cut off his horn, I was thinking, wait a second, is this the origin story for Vizago from Rebels? Like, because doesn't he have a cut off horn too? I'm pretty sure he does.
I can't remember at the moment. Do you want? There's no way to know. It's not like we're looking.
I'm looking it up
at
now.
Each other. I'm also.
Yeah, he has a cut horn. It's the other horn though.
The first. Oh, it is.
It's the left horn. Roland got his right horn cut off.
Yep. The first Google result when you type in Vizago is Vizago in the Bad Batch. So.
Yeah, there you go.
We're in good company.
I like Roland a lot better than Vizago though. Vizago is really annoying.
Yeah, I like that Roland is like a wimp and a coward kind of, but like there's potential there. He is.
Yes.
There's the potential for him to be charming.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now we don't like him a lot. Right? He's not like he's not a super sympathetic character.
Yeah. But
like I think we'll follow Omega's lead and kind of find what is good about him in the future.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's just to me, they're building something with the underworld of Star Wars. It's very clear. I think it started in Solo. Really, it started in Clone Wars, but Solo really elevated it, and I think they're continuing that. And I think the Book of Boba Fett is really going to pick up a lot of those threads.
I think so too. I think it's going to be the ending to the story that's starting around this time.
Yeah,
the Book of Boba Fett's going to kind of complete that journey, and we'll get more material to fill in those gaps as we go.
Absolutely. So, because this is not a live one, and our patrons haven't had enough time to watch and think of questions, we do have a question which kind of points towards, okay, next time we're all together, we'll see if this comes true or not. What do we think the next 3 episodes, like what's going to happen? How will that go? So what do you think? If the next episode is titled what it's titled,
it seems like maybe next episode's going to be a big confrontation with Crosshair.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably deal with that first, and then he'll either be with us or won't be with us while we transition more into that Clone Rebellion type thing.
Do you think the Clone Rebellion happens this season?
Maybe not. But there might be like the first kind of big incident that kind of kicks it off. That
maybe not the Camino battle.
Right. Yeah. But something else. Some other instance where the Bad Batch can get through to some clones, and we understand kind of how the inhibitor chip stuff works. I don't know. I do think we're going to deal with Crosshair either next episode or the episode after that. It'll be kind of before, and then ideally, hopefully, he'll be rejoining the team for a big finale. But I kind of wonder if it's not going to go that way.
See, that's what I was thinking. Like when he was hesitating, I think he does still care for them. I do. Yes. I really do think he does care for them, but he thinks they're on the wrong side. What Rampart was saying when Crosshair showed that hesitation was that we need to capture the bad, like your friends. We need to. That's what he was telling Crosshair. So I'm wondering if it was going through Crosshair's mind of, I wonder if I can turn them back.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like turn them to his side, not necessarily join them, but like, hey, this is your last chance to join me.
Right. And I think that's why it's cool that we're getting into kind of the questions of how much agency clones really do have in all of this, because I think Crosshair is a true believer in the Empire.
Yep.
Like I think he believes that he followed orders and did the correct thing.
Yep.
And that, like, I mean, he seems very much like a, law and order kind of individual, which tends to be the reason people like the Empire.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm I wonder if he's gonna have to make the choice between his friends and the Empire in the end. Like,
I don't think he'll join them, but I could see him saving them and then getting taken out for it.
that's kind of what I'm seeing, or I kind of think is going to happen.
Yeah.
So when I said like, I don't know that it's going to go the way that he rejoins the team.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be much of him left, unfortunately. But he can do the Star Wars villain redemption thing where he saves everybody and then immediately dies and doesn't have to face the consequences at all of everything that he's done. So,
yeah, I think War Mantle also could potentially refer to the unveiling of the Kaminoan contingency plan. War Mantle just like has this idea of like legacy to me. I don't know.
Okay, so this kind of leads into my Omega theory then. If she does have the Force, okay, if she's a clone that can use the Force, we do know that from canon that some clones were created that became basically like one step under a Jedi Inquisitor. Like they're the ones that hunt down Jedi. We see them in the Fallen Order games. This was kind of revealed recently in a Darth Vader comic where like a character removed their helmets and they're all clones. So I'm wondering if like she's the key to unlocking low level ability to use the Force, not like full level Jedi level type Force using, right? But like enough to give you an advantage in a battle. And I wonder if like that's the Kaminoans like last, like, hey, here's this thing. And then Rampart's going to take them out because I think he would see them as a threat, right? Like if they can create that, they're a threat to me. I need to take them out. And then this is where we get Dr. Pershing from The Mandalorian. You bring in your own people to try to replicate that and they can't.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think that's a good theory there.
It is just a theory, by the way.
Yeah.
Just a theory.
Yeah. Very credible. You have kind of made the comparison between Omega's like strategic skills and stuff and like maybe Bastila from KOTOR, her like battle meditation thing.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Like and it seems kind of similar in effect. Like you can almost like rise above the situation and view everything from the top down.
Yep.
So maybe that's kind of maybe she is kind of low key using the Force to do that. I don't know.
That'd be cool. I'm so down for any of that. Because like I love what the show is, but what makes Star Wars is the Force and those sorts of elements. So any way you can sprinkle that in, it doesn't have to be heavy handed, like we're talking about. It could be like a very low level type thing, but it's still like, oh, that's really cool. That's unique. That's different than what we see in other science fiction properties and stuff. So I don't know. That would be cool. Let me ask you this, Mac. Do you think we'll see Omega in live action one day?
We've been bringing enough characters from live action to animation and from animation to live action. I think it's probable, depending on how the series goes,
Yeah, exactly.
If nothing bad happens that contains her to this series, I think we will. I think she'll. And I mean, even depending, how crazy would it be if season 1 ends on this big cliffhanger and then she pops up in Book of Boba Fett or something like that, right? And then we don't know the middle part of the story, but because we'll get more of Omega.
Do you think? I mean, but have they announced a second season for the Bad Batch? I mean, this could be just like a one. No, I think show.
Yeah.
Have they? I
honestly don't know either. I think I was always under the impression that it was one season, and then you started saying something about this season. I was like, oh, maybe I missed that they announced one.
Well, I mean, I assume they're going to at least do 2. Star Wars Resistance had 2 seasons, and that's the least amount we've seen. Rebels was 4. Clone Wars was 8. So I'm thinking at least one more, but it could just be one. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think anything has been confirmed or denied at this point.
Interesting. I assume that there'll be another one, but if not, then we're in for a crazy final 3 episodes. And I don't think the next episode is going to be like one last mission and then like a 2-part ending. I think it's like a 3-part ending. I think this is going to be big. What's coming up?
I think it's going to be kind of like how they like ended the 7th season of Clone Wars.
Yeah,
in a big cataclysmic thing,
right?
That spans 3 episodes.
I said 8 seasons of Clone Wars. It was 7.
Yeah, it's all good.
So okay, before we jump off the Bad Batch recap, there is a little bit of Mandalorian news. Our boy Rick Villanueva actually pointed this out on Twitter. I think I'm going to give him the credit that kind of made this news spread throughout the internet. There's basically an article that was talking about the VFX stuff of how they use it on Star Wars shows, Marvel shows, stuff like that. And then like to a little aside, and it's just one sentence. It said The Mandalorian season 3 is in production.
That's big news, honestly, because we've been in the dark.
But it makes me wonder, like, okay, I know The Last of Us is still in production right now too, and Pedro Pascal is in that. So like, if they're in production right now, are they doing all the things that don't require him? And is Brandon Wayne back in the suit most of the time?
Right. Yeah, they could just be doing second unit stuff right now, all the stunts, the fights, everything like that. And that would be, they'd be doing a lot of VFX stuff at that time,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne back in the suit.
It may just be that Pedro is basically going to voice Din again this season.
I'm fine with that. I was just kind of hoping, based on the trajectory of what they've set up, that he wouldn't be wearing the helmet as much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked all about how we kind of want season 3 to go, or think would be cool for it to go.
Mandalore!
Yeah. And he'd have to be facing the question of like, is it okay to take helmets off? Like, am I going to be like Bo-Katan? Am I going to be a child of the Watch still?
He's going to be somewhere in between.
Yeah. As Alex dons Din's helmet once more. It is funny when you're not wearing like the shoulder pads and stuff. Your head looks real big.
It does. It actually fits really well, though.
Yeah.
I was afraid my head was too big for this.
I would fear that for mine. I got a pretty big gourd.
Yeah. Where's the kid? That's something else Din says a lot. He doesn't really talk that much.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of catchphrases.
This is the way.
He's got "This is the way." I think that's pretty much his only catchphrase.
That's pretty much it. That's
pretty much it. That's your option.
I mean, this is the way.
We love a stoic hero. So
we do. And this is how he eats soup right here.
Yes, he just lifts it up a little
bit. All right, cool.
Cool. Well, I feel sufficiently recapped.
I feel so recapped right now. Wow.
That's good.
So recapped.
Yeah. Well, hey, listeners, thank you for joining us, or viewers, whatever you are. We love you all the same. Check out the Patreon. Commentary coming soon. There's a poll on the Patreon right now. Vote in that. We are basically deciding what format we're going to have the next commentary take. So it's between, last time we did it via live stream. And then the other option is just doing it, audio only podcast form, kind of how we've done traditionally. So go let us know what you would prefer, because we just want to make sure that, you're getting what you want.
That's exactly right. And don't forget our scheduling. So the weeks of August 6th and 13th, that's when we'll be back for the Bad Batch recap. And we'll be ending the Bad Batch recap and then start mentally and emotionally, spiritually, physically preparing for the Book of Boba Fett at that point.
Mostly physically. I'm going to get shredded for the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, you are. You know what you need? You need to get a Boba Fett helmet, and we just do a whole episode in our helmets.
I'm down.
Also, when we start covering the Book of Boba Fett, we'll probably have a very upgraded look on YouTube by that time.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Hopefully you won't have to be looking at this nice 720p thing here.
Oh yeah, baby.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much for listening and tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. But until then, keep the watch.